Hi, my name's Marlon the Toit, professional wildlife photographer, safari guide, and Sony Alpha ambassador. Thank you so much for joining today in this live session on a lovely Saturday, whether you're overseas on a different time zone or here in South Africa. I appreciate the time that you've taken to come here and spend just a 40-minute or an hour session with me as we talk through not only mirrorless wildlife photography, but also my experience and journey with Sony thus far. Now, getting into it, I'm going to speak through a whole range of topics, but most importantly, I want to cover my experience journey with mirrorless systems and wildlife photography, and also break and bust, if I may use that word, a few myths around the subject of mirrorless photography. And, getting right into it, I see so often on threads and communication and talks today that people are still caught up with these limitations that mirrorless cameras, yes, a few years ago used to face. No doubt there were situations where you would probably have wanted a DSLR in hand 3-4 years ago, but a lot of that has changed over literally the last 2 years. And a lot of that due to the introduction of this beautiful camera system here, the Sony A9 Mark II and initially the Mark I. And I became aware of it. I host safaris and throughout Africa and a few international places. And in 2017, 2018, a few of my guests started traveling with Sony gear. And they, I think the first one I saw was an A7 III. I can't remember the model, but I remember 100-400 lens. And we were sitting in the Serengeti, and I had my DSLR system at the time. And my guest, she was on the Sony and photographing lions on a rocky outcrop. Now, it's when I looked at it, I was like, oh, fine. And I kind of dismissed this small little camera because it even had it didn't have a battery grip attached. So it was quite small. Then I looked at the setup and I had my big DSLR and my great lenses. And it was literally this little system right here. So if it focuses on the camera, see if it will. That's what my client had, but the A7. So it was small. I looked at it and I was like, man, that's nice and cute. Then I looked at the photograph afterwards and I was blown away. Okay, I zoomed in and I looked at the resolution and I was like, hang on, this is what is this? Then I started paying attention to Sony. And more I started seeing clients travel with it. I remember a client in the Pantanal in 2018. I recommended he get an A9 and a 400 f2.8 or 100-400 at the time. He got the 400 when it launched in 2019. And I saw his images and they were fantastic. So just as time went on, I started noticing Sony more and more. And then last year I was approached to use the gear, and I took it with me to Brazil, to the Pantanal, and I'm going to show you some images of that particular trip. And I had Sony gear, the A9 Mark I, the 400 f2.8, 100-400, 24-70, the A7 R3. I had all that with me, and I was blown away. I left my DSLRs at home for 6 weeks in Brazil, and I did not regret it. It's a big move. I'm talking about jaguars, toucans, macaws, beautiful creatures. You don't want to mess up those photographs. And yet, I didn't. I did not miss DSLR, and that was an instant change for me. I knew that the future of wildlife photography has arrived, and it is here. So yeah, without further ado, let me get into this a little bit more and share with you just a few myths and misunderstandings that, in my opinion, have crept in to wildlife photographers nowadays. And the reality is that I've noted a few points here for you. Let me do it this way so you don't have to read all of them all at once. But let's talk about the size, the weight, and the build quality. Now, one of the first things, and I still see it in forums today, where people will look at the Sony systems and just go, man, why are you using that? Like, surely it's going to break, surely it won't last, surely it'll overheat, or when it's too cold it won't function well. And the reality is it's not the case. It could not be further from the truth, guys. Now, I'm not making this up. I'm not just saying this because I'm an ambassador for the brand and I have to. I'm saying this because I truly mean it. If I look at this camera right here, I've taken the A9, the A7R4, the A7R3, the A9 Mark I, A9 Mark II, and I've taken this into extreme heat in the Pantanal. So we're talking about humidity of 90, 95%, out in the sun all day. From 5 o'clock in the morning, you're on the boat, you come back in the evening at 6 o'clock in extreme sun, okay? And nothing wrong. I've taken this on the opposite end of the scale to the Himalayas, where it was minus 25, minus 30. This is my 600 f4, beautiful lens, unbelievable piece of equipment. And I remember having this with me, and there was snow covering this lens. Snow, literally a layer of snow covered my my A9, and regardless, it kept working. And another complaint I often get is the construction and how it affects the battery life. And honestly, I hardly charged batteries. Every couple of days, I would keep them on charge because it's just what you do and you never know when you need it. But I kept spare batteries on me, and even in that extreme cold, the cameras did fine. Not one issue. Both the A7R4, the A9 II functioned well, perfectly well. I've taken it into dust, okay? So I've had the camera gear in extreme dust, Manapul, Zimbabwe, Kabini in India, I've had them in the Masai Mara, very dusty destinations. Perfect. And I've had them in rain, okay? Soaking wet, shooting in rain, photographing lines in rain. No problem, guys. So in terms of the build quality, there is nothing you should fear when it comes to this gear. It honestly works well. I have tested, I'm a professional photographer. I get to test the gear in many different scenarios and situations, and I have not had any problems. And I'm talking, like I said, from Himalayas to South America to Africa, it's worked well. Then another added bonus is the weight. So if you look at a camera like this camera is small. It hardly weighs anything. With this battery, the vertical grip attached, it's still under a kilo in total, which is great. You can also, for ease of use, you literally take this off, it screws off, and all of a sudden you have this small compact system which you can now mount. You can mount your Pro A9 to A7R4 to a gimbal. You can use it in hand. I use it like this when I photograph kids at home. But then again, you can add this. I've got fairly big hands, so for me, it's just a question of putting the two together, and I have a larger camera system. It's a little bit more weighty, and I can get my hands around, and I've got function on both ends of this camera. So for me, that's been a game changer, being able to change it up like that. Because when I travel and I do long haul flights, especially international flights, I can take this off. And I only stash this in my camera bag. This plus a few, this goes into my luggage bag, the grip, camera in my camera bag, and I keep a couple of spare batteries in my camera bag. And the rest goes in luggage. And it helps with your weight, especially now. The future of travel will be uncertain, and there'll definitely be more limitations in place with what you can take with you. So the fact that you can now pack a smaller camera instead of a big clunky heavy DSLR makes a big difference in your packing experience as a whole. And then the size, like I said now, it is small. It fits into my hand. I can take this off and have a smaller unit. And what I love about it is the A7R4, the A9 II, which are the two flagship models, the two that I use most, are exactly the same. Same dimensions. The buttons are in the same place. And I love that because I can move seamlessly between the two and get the most out of the photographic experience. So that for me is an absolute win. So if ever you get onto a thread or a conversation topic where people are talking about, it doesn't last, it's gonna die, it can't handle extreme cold, can't go into rain, absolute nonsense, guys. What Sony have done with the A9 II and the A7R4 in terms of weather sealing, construction, and so forth is next level, and you can be absolute confident about taking your gear into pretty extreme conditions. Now, the autofocus system on this camera, I'll bring up point number 3 as well here. These two are game changing for me. Now, on a DSLR, you're limited. If you know your camera well, when you look through a viewfinder, you can see your range of where your focal points can move within your frame. In general, it's fairly limited. So you can't really move your focal points much purely because you're limited to that. That's how the camera is made. On this Sony systems, what's amazing is you have access to the entire frame. You can move your focal point from top left or this is your top right, probably all the way to the other corner. So you've got a range of focal points to your disposal across your entire frame. Now that is game changing. This means that you can track actively all the way to the corners. And I'm going to show you a video clip. I've got footage where I can take you in my EVF into my viewfinder. I'm going to show you how I tracked and photographed a heron, and it tracked the bird on the corner of the frame all the way at the top. That's something your DSLR will not do. So the autofocus system on these cameras, top notch, you can't go wrong. And then Sony's gone and added the most ridiculous thing, which is animal eye autofocus. I'm going to show you how it works, so don't go anywhere. In a few minutes, I'll again invite you into my viewfinder and show you actual footage of how effective the autofocus system is and how effective animal eye autofocus works. You cannot go wrong. It is something that will change your wildlife photography for the better. A lot of people talk about it becoming too easy. You still need to understand it. But once you do, guys, it just means through the autofocus system in this camera, there's one less thing for you to worry about. So you don't have to actively move your focal point around in your frame as much as what you used to. You now all of a sudden can trust the camera, this absolutely blistering autofocus system, to track your animal for you and do all the work for you. And I think that's a fantastic thing to have, and a massive advantage as a wildlife photographer. Now this as well, the real-time exposure change. Now I'm a safari guide, and I'm a photographic safari guide as well. So I constantly am assisting my guests with settings. So I will go and take a photograph, and on a DSLR, what I used to do is I have to quickly, before my guests even start photographing, I'm trying to get the exposure right. Usually shooting in aperture mode or in manual, what the correct shutter speed and exposure balance would be. That will involve me picking up the camera, taking a photo, having a look, playing back. Okay, cool, maybe it's a bit dark, back onto the camera, check. And then finally, after one or two shots, I can tell my guests, guys, look at minus a third or 800th of a second, but I can give them exposure setting updates. Now, what I do here has changed the game. I can see the exposure, and that's great. So I can literally pick it up, and through my EVF, if I go -1 in exposure compensation, the screen goes darker. If I go +1, it goes brighter. If I change my depth of field, go from f7.1 to f4, I can see the depth of field narrow. Now that is awesome. Why would you not want that? Along with all the incredible features, the fact that I get to see the exposure change real time makes a big difference for me, because I can not only assist my guests in the field, but I can get the photograph faster. If a lion's sleeping under a shady tree, the exposure there is very different to when that lion gets up and walks into the sunlight. I see the change, I adapt, I call out the settings to my guests, and I'm on the money every single shot. And even in addition to that, the EVF information that I can see, it's far more diverse than on a DSLR. So I can see my histogram in the corner of my frame, and I'm constantly monitoring my levels of light, especially if I have brighter skies or really dark shadows, or an animal like an elephant or a rhino, really dark colors and tones. So that is an absolute game changer, and something that you should really consider as a factor to change, essentially. Now, the A9 II is fast. How fast? Well, 20 frames per second kind of fast. It is blistering. You can't do that well if there's an actual mirror that closes up and down the whole time, because you actually get something called blackout. Now, the A9 II shoots that speed blackout free. In wildlife photography, and when you do action photography, it really helps you, because you can actively track an animal without losing sight of it. You'll see that if the shutter gets in the way, sometimes for that brief, however small second it is, you lose sight of the animal, and it affects your range of motion and what you're seeing through your viewfinder, especially something running quickly like a cheetah on a hunt. You want to be able to track the motion exactly to the point, and that's what this blackout-free shooting allows you. And you couple that with no lag. Guys, this is something I've heard so many times, is lag. Yes, it's a problem in some mirrorless cameras. It's not a problem in the A9 II, the A7R4. Guys, you will not have any shutter lag. What you see through the viewfinder is pretty much what's happening out there. And it takes some getting used to, going from the viewfinder in a DSLR to that of a mirrorless camera. But they've got it so darn good, like that it really doesn't bother me. And you'll see when I show you in a few minutes the actual viewfinder footage, you'll be able to see just how good it is, how good the quality is, and how easy it is to keep track of a subject. It looks real time. You hardly notice a difference. What I found in past and previous experiences with mirrorless is you feel disconnected. It feels like you're watching a movie of the scene happening through the viewfinder. But that is honestly a thing of the past, in my opinion. Now, low light performance is something important to take notice of, because I found mirrorless cameras lacking in that in the past. The A9 II and the A7R4 and a few other models in Sony have changed that for me. Mirrorless is catching up, and in the A9 II, in my opinion, has equaled or even surpassed what's out and available on DSLR. The low light capabilities is incredible. I actually put a post up this morning on Instagram where I spoke through shooting in low light. Some of my favorite light takes place after the sun had set. That golden, especially if there's a bit of clouds and some residual sunlight on the clouds, you get this beautiful golden rich color on your subject. And it's often accompanied by high ISOs, 4,000, 6,400, 8,000 ISO. If it's a cat on the move, even higher. And I'll comfortably take it up to 12,800 or 16,000 ISO, which is high. Guys, ISO should not be a consideration anymore. Like with the advent of cameras like the A9 II, it's a thing of the past. It is amazing the quality that you can get off of these cameras, and I'm truly impressed by the low light performance and the autofocus tracking that comes along with it in the A9 II. Now, the last one that I'll mention here, something to take notice of, and it's just a big bonus, are firmware updates. Now, what's great about it is you can get a brand new autofocus system through a firmware update. Previously, on a DSLR, you would have had to go and buy a new camera to get the better autofocus system. Animal eye autofocus was introduced via a firmware update. Think about that. Like, that is amazing. And what it does is it just allows you to stay current with your gear and with the equipment that you use. If there's something worthy of adding, Sony will add it, and then you are up to date without having to go and invest in a new camera system. And I think that's a major advantage to mirrorless. So getting into some footage that I want to share and showcase to you, and I'll talk through the photographs as well, but that just to set the foundation, the points that I've just mentioned to you, those are extremely important points to consider, to know. You will see debates taking place on social media, on panel and discussions. And I tell you now, those opinions are uninformed, and they have no basis or merit. If people tell you this camera is not well built, well, you know different. Not only because Marlon said so, but hopefully because you've gone and tried it out for yourself. So many people say they don't have lenses available. There's a lack of lenses in mirrorless cameras. Guys, look at this. This is a Sony 600 f4, an unbelievable beast of a lens. I took this thing to the Himalayas. I've taken it to the Pantanal. I've taken it into Africa. This is an unbelievable piece of equipment. I've covered it up a little bit, but there you can see that beautiful Sony line, so characteristic of the lens. And it weighs 3,050 grams. It's so light. I mean, I can handle this thing. I know I'm not the smallest guy, but they've just changed the game for me. And if it wasn't for equipment like this kind of lenses, I use the 600 f4, I use the 400 f2.8. If it wasn't for this and cameras like the A9 II, I wouldn't be having this conversation. But we are. The face and the way we photograph wildlife has changed. This is the future of wildlife photography. I have no doubt about that. And I can say that with no guilt. I honestly have no doubt that what you've seen there, that is the future of wildlife photography. And I'm going to show you. So what I'm going to show you first, guys, and just because it's practical and we all have pets, I want to show you how effective the autofocus system is on animals at home. So let me invite you into my viewfinder here. This is photographing my dogs at home, and all I want to do is show you how active it is. So this is my viewfinder right inside. I'm selecting the autofocus or the focus area, the focus mode, and bang on the eye. Now this is animal eye autofocus at its best. You'll see that bottom left, when that little icon lights up green, that's when I'm focusing. And look at the quality of these images. All right, so here's my dog again. Now, when he looks away, you can see the tracking points. Now I'm not focusing, but I keep hovering over where the eye and the head would be. And the moment that dog looks around at me, it's straight back on the eye. And I've set my camera on the menu side of things to be on the closest eye. And it is so effective. Look at this. Now, as he's walking towards me, it keeps tracking. Even here, the moment he looks up, it immediately recognizes the eye. And what that ensures is just that my camera will always give me a sharp result. Even my dog's here. This is my dog running towards me. Look at that on the eye. And if you look at the results, pin sharp. That is action photography at its best. She's coming at me quite fast, little chocolate lab. And just the result is exactly what you would want as a wildlife photographer. You want to have sharp images. Here she is walking towards me, head low, still tracks the eye, still identifies the eye. And the result, again, is beautiful, sharp photography. Guys, that is the A9 II in action. It's a special device that I'm able to show you inside the viewfinder what I see. But by looking at that, you can see, like, there's no nonsense here. This is not me just saying what it's capable of doing. You can see it. Now, I'm going to show you more footage, wildlife footage, where, again, the same system inside my viewfinder. Watch how the camera locks onto the eye. Look at the speed of the autofocus system, where traditional camera systems would, or lenses, would focus with a tubular autofocus mechanism, which means when you press the focus button, it turns to achieve focus, to move the elements backwards and forwards. This has a linear autofocus system, so it moves straight back and forward. It doesn't have to turn and waste time. And in wildlife photography, milliseconds is all you have. And to be able to focus even faster than the traditional lens tech, that makes a big difference to your overall photography. Now watch this. This is a cheetah, even on the walk, so I'm waiting for the head and the eyes. It's on the head, and the moment those eyes showcase to me, there it is, smack bang on the eye. Now I'm tracking the eye. The cheetah will soon start walking, and as soon as it does start to walk, you will see, even sideways, it still locks into the eye. There's a lot of spots, but it identifies that eye perfectly. Now watch this. The moment that cheetah looks around, give it time, give it time. Give it time. There we go. Now it drops into the other eye. So the camera is set. It's so intelligent that it goes from one eye to the other. And now that the cat is up and walking, you can see there that it tracks the eye still accurately through the grass, in the shadow, and it is still on where the eye would be. The photograph that I would get from that is pin sharp, and without fail, it works. Look at that, through the grass. It holds onto that eye, and that is what you want in your camera. How is that, guys? Like this is why I love this kind of footage, and why I love introducing you to what you can see through my viewfinder, because there's no nonsense. That's not gimmicks. That's showing you that it works. It actually tracks the eye. Now watch this. Look at how, again here, a cheetah. I've chosen a cheetah because it's the most difficult of the eyes to lock onto, because it has as many spots. But you can see there, the camera doesn't make any mistakes on finding the eye. So here, onto the head, it doesn't go anywhere else. Back onto the eye here, the closest eye. As the cheetah looks around, it doesn't lose track of the cat. This is my actual viewfinder. You can see as it switches and looks off to the right, it switches eyes and tracks onto another eye perfectly. And that's what you want. Back onto that one, again, immediately identifies the eye, and it doesn't let go. That means I can compose freely because I know that the eye is being tracked. Does that make sense to you? So if you think about it, as a wildlife photographer, what you want to ultimately achieve is exactly what you're seeing here. Look at how I'm putting it in the extreme corner, just to show you how well it's still on the eye. So I can now compose and shoot. I'm shooting on back button autofocus. So I've got the back button depressed, so it's continuously focusing. And as long as the eye is visible, I've got no problem. When the eye goes away, those autofocus points congregate around the head. It's like it'll first look for the eye. If the eye is not visible, it'll congregate around the head. If the head, like let's say the animal turns completely and gives me its rear side, it might track on the bum. But the moment the head becomes visible, it goes onto the head. Then the eyes become visible, it goes onto the eyes. And it's a very intelligent autofocus system, and it really, really works. And what it does for you as a wildlife photographer is it makes it easier, because now you no longer have to move that focus point onto this eye, and then the cheetah walks across. You got to move it and follow it, and before you can even take photos. You're constantly ready to take a photo. The eyes are being tracked. Now you can compose, put it anywhere you want in the frame, and you can just shoot and do your thing, and there'll be no problems. Guys, that is game-changing, revolutionary. Doesn't matter what you say. It really works well. I'm going to go back and take you to the same cheetahs. Now watch this. This is how fast the lens focuses. Focusing on the background, I'll pull it back on the cheetah. Look how quick that is. Okay, again, onto the background. Now watch this. Boom, right on the eyes. That is extremely fast autofocus tracking, guys. Look at that. Without a doubt, that has changed the game of wildlife photography. Again, on the background, bring the focus point back to the eye, and instantaneous. I don't know how it does it. Like, that's the guys at Sony that are able to achieve this kind of speed, but it's just so fast. It'll I purposefully take it out of focus on the back, bring it back onto the eye, just to show you how quickly it locks onto not only the cheetah, but it immediately goes from that background onto the face, onto the eye. Now, if you're in an action situation and you got to be quick, that's what you want. You want a speedy resolution, and that's what this lens does. It is able to focus so fast and give you the kind of photograph that you just saw there. That's what you want, guys. Like, you know, and I love this footage because it really doesn't leave anything to the imagination. You can see how effective it is. Watch this. So how about we take a crazy subject like a rhino? Yes, like lions, it does well, antelope, all these things. But a rhino's got a very small eye. It's an odd animal. You think like probably won't be able to track that. But look at this. So this is a white rhino. I'm not focusing yet. Even before I focus, it already pre-selects the eye. Watch that. Not focusing yet. That's the camera showing me where the eye is. Bottom left, you'll see it light up green. There, now I'm focusing. That's me tracking. So it's already identified the eye of the rhino even before I focused. That is amazing. Game changing. You're going to hear me say that a few times still. And yeah, you can see I'm now left. Now, a rhino's got a big head, right? It's got a very long head, probably over a meter in length. It's very difficult to pinpoint that eye, especially if you're using a lens like I'm doing here at f2.8. If I focus on the ear or 10, 20 centimeters behind the eye, you'll see that the eye won't be pin sharp. But here, there's no doubt. The eye is where my focus is being achieved. Even with the rhino looking left and right, so giving me a side profile like that, I'm still able to achieve focus on the rhino every single shot. Now, that, if you're not sold yet, that should be pretty darn good. But I'm going to take it one step further for you. What about birds? Many of us love bird photography. And inside my viewfinder, I've got some photographs that I'll show you. But inside the viewfinder, I'll show you how I photographed a roller. So watch this. So you can see those autofocus points tracking actively, and there you go. Doesn't let go. Doesn't matter where I am in the frame. I'll show that to you again. You can see the bird is sharp. Now, this was just a test, but you can see there, regardless of my composition, the autofocus points will actively track the bird very, very well. Now, that is amazing, guys. So what that means is you no longer have to try and align your focal point with the bird. This is how Sony has changed the game with this autofocus system. It is next level. So you're able now to point the camera at the bird, press the back button down, the autofocus points will find the bird, and as it flies, it will track that bird. It doesn't matter how you're composing, because we all shaky. It's sometimes not easy. I'll show you with the heron, the next video. The heron goes all the way up to the corner of my frame, my composition. And the point of it wasn't to get a great shot. It was flying away from me. I just wanted to show you how well these autofocus points perform. Now watch this clip right here. This is how effective it is. The heron's about to take off. Watch it. There it goes. Autofocus point firing all the way to the top of the frame and back out. Those corners where it's focusing right there, those are not even within reach of a DSLR. That is Sony, unbelievable. There was a tree in the way, it ignored the tree, and watch this again as it takes off. All I'm doing is back button down and firing. You can see the frames being fired all the way into the extreme corner, guys. For me, ladies and gentlemen, that deserves a bow, a hand clap. I'll just do that for you. Well done, Sony, because that is something that I've not seen in any DSLR. The ability to reach the top of the frame, keep track of your subject for you, it's not possible. So if you make an error, and let's say you're in a hunting sequence and something's being chased or there's some kind of thing like that you want to capture, without a doubt, with the Sony, it won't let go of the action or the animal. It'll track it. It'll be sharp every single shot. My keep rate since using the A9 II is massive. Like, it's seldom that I get photographs that are actually out of focus. And that is next level. That is what you want in your camera. Reliability. You spend all this money. It's not cheap to buy this equipment, but once you invest in it, you want it to produce the results, and you want something that you can trust. So when you go into the field and you put this stuff to the test and it's giving you bang, bang, keeper after keeper, that is what you want to achieve. And that's what I've been able to get from the gear. You've seen, as I invited you into my viewfinder, just how effective the autofocus system really is. Now, I'm going to show you a few photographs, guys. And before I do, I hope you guys are still here. I hope you didn't log off. Like I said, guys, I'm a professional safari guide. I do this for a living. And although, yes, I'm endorsed by Sony, I'm not saying this because I'm being told to or anything like that. I love what I do. I love technology and I love sharing. If you followed me for some time, you'll know that. And for me, I just can't stop talking about this because I've been photographing for a long time. I've been a professional guide for almost 15 years, and it's so exciting. I used to know my DSLR through and through. I used to get into the field, pick up my DSLR, and I just know my settings and what I need to do, and that was kind of that. I wasn't surprised by anything. The photos were good. The performance was good. But I was just like kind of set in my ways. But ever since I picked up the gear that I have here, that's changed for me, because no longer is it am I in a mode like auto mode in my head. I now am trying things. I'm trying different modes. I'm assigning different custom functions to my menu. I'm using different techniques, and that's what Mirrorless has done. It's opened up the field, given you new tech, given you new tools to explore as a wildlife photographer, and it really has been an amazing journey. Now, let me get into some photographs for you and show you what we are talking about. Look at this. This is a jaguar jumping across a channel. We waited for this cat for some time. I really didn't want to mess it up, as you would probably guess. None of us would want to mess a shot like this up. And we were following her. I saw a channel coming up where she would either walk through, knowing cats, but cats usually like to jump, but jaguars love water. But I thought, let me set my guest and I up, and let's see if we can get her jumping. And true and behold, she jumped. And it's so easy to get these frames now with the autofocus system on this camera. You can see this is before the jump, pin sharp, no problem at all. And this is as she hit the water and ran out. That entire sequence, every frame at 20 frames a second, was sharp and in focus. Now that is very, very special to mention, because so often if you perhaps have your focal point and you might, in an action scene like that, focus on the background, or it might leave the cat for a second, you stand a chance of getting that photograph out of focus. But with the autofocus system introduced on these Sony cameras, it's not the case. You now absolutely are guaranteed, if you're using the right focus area, that the cat will be tracked from the moment it jumps all the way through to the moment that it lands. And you can see there, just beautiful sharpness, crisp, in focus, and for me, that is game changing. What about this? Love this photo. We were following this jaguar on the hunt, and just the ability to get that shutter speed, that beautiful depth of field, and then so sharp action photography on the Sony A9 is next level. This is actually on the A9 Mark I. The A9 II is the newer model, but using the 400 f2.8. Beautiful result, beautiful image, sharp, and like I said in the previous frame, you guaranteed, I say the word guaranteed, but I'll be as bold as to say that you're guaranteed that the shot will be sharp and in focus. And that is a very special thing as a wildlife photographer. You don't want your photograph to be out of focus. You want it to be on the money. And that's what this does for you. Now, this next frame I want to talk you through, because what happened here was we were with a jaguar, and it was swimming across the water, came up onto an island, and I wasn't ready. We had been with it for a long time. We were thinking of going back. It was soon to go into some vegetation, when all of a sudden this cat dropped down onto the sand and started stalking straight at us. Like in straight, we're on a boat. The boat's moving a bit, consider that. And this cat comes straight at us. Now, I had a 400 f2.8 and I had a 2x teleconverter on the camera. Now, the teleconverters on these lenses, you don't lose autofocus performance and you don't lose any image quality. It's so good. I'm not just saying that. It makes these lenses so versatile, because I'm not afraid to use the 400 f2.8 with teleconverters. The image quality is great, even on DSLR. But on the Sony, because I don't lose autofocus performance, which is something you do tend to do on the DSLRs, it makes it next level. So here I am, Sony A9, 400 f2.8, 2x teleconverter, when all of a sudden this took place right here. So watch this. This is an image I took when the cat was already on the way towards me. It happened so quickly, guys. I literally just had to pick up and start shooting. I picked up, fired away to get the shot. Very, very quick action and reaction. And the result is something that I love. I love this photograph. This is the cat coming straight towards us again. Very fast, at full tilt. That thing was moving. It saw capybara and it wanted to get out of sight of the potential prey, and just dropped down to the ground and started stalking straight towards us and around. And it was over in seconds, 2-3 second sequence. But because we were ready, because of the amazing autofocus capability of this camera, I was able to track it, keep track of it, and get this kind of shot before it left the scene. And absolutely amazing. I love this photograph. And it's just, look at the sand coming up off the feet. That cat is like, it's giving new meaning to the phrase leopard crawl, I'm pretty sure. And because of the reaction time, there's no lag. I didn't have to wait for the camera to start up. I didn't have any doubt to my autofocus system. I could literally pick that up, back button down, and just shoot through that whole frame. And it worked. Got the shot. And that to me is what I want. As a wildlife photographer, I want reliability and the ability to capture what I see. I've got a lot. I think in my Lightroom catalog, I must have over 300,000 photos, a lot. And that's trimmed down. And so I know what I want. And I don't photograph often. I let my guests shoot. I help them with settings. When I do photograph, I want to make the most of it. Okay? That's very, very important for me. I want to be able to shoot and get the best possible photographic experience. And that's why it counts for me to have gear that meets that expectation. Now, I was in Ranthabor earlier this year and we had a tigress. She was stalking some deer right behind us again. So it was the deer over here, our vehicle, and then the tigress coming at us. Her name was Arrowhead. And so what she did is she came through trees right towards us. Difficult to keep track of her and to keep focus of her. But she came, she was in a hurry, she was hungry. And if I show you this photograph, you will see that even through the trees, she is sharp and in focus. Now, I was able to track, I wish I had the Atomus rigged up so I can show you in the viewfinder. But the ability to track this cat coming towards us through all these trees, that was next level for me. It's something that you can't really do very well on a camera like a DSLR. There's limitations to what the autofocus can do. But this intelligent tracking system on the Sony means I could compose like this. Put the cat on the extreme corner, leave all these trees off to the left, and still track her eyes. Not lose autofocus power or strength on the far end of the frame. And it just works out so very well. Now, in a similar situation was this jackal running behind the vultures. My autofocus sensitivity was set to 2. It can go all the way up to 5, and I left it at 2, which means it doesn't just track any frame or any animal that moves into your frame. And what this does is it gives you the opportunity to ignore possible objects in the front and track the animal that you are tracking in the back. And look how well that's played out. That jackal is sharp in focus. The vultures have been ignored, and I got the shot that I wanted. It was chasing a vulture, and it's just a great example of how effective it is. Now, even here, this is a leopard in Ranthambore National Park, or in Kabini, sorry, not Ranthambore. And even in this frame, you can see that through all the vegetation, I never had to worry about the cat not being tracked. It immediately recognized the eyes, and because of that, the resulting image is pin sharp and exactly the way that I want it to turn out. So you can see animal eye autofocus and the autofocus system on this A92 and A7R4 and a few other models, it just works. It really just works very, very well. And this is not a sales gimmick. I'm showing you the results of these cameras. I know what I'm doing in the field. I know how to use these cameras. And for me, it's just elevated my game from this even bigger, because I'm able to achieve results faster and more accurately. And that's what you want. Wildlife photography is not like a model scene where you can put a model or in a controlled environment and the right lighting. It's not like a race car scene where the car is going to come around this corner at that time. You can see it coming. You know which way it's going to turn. It's not like that. That leopard could turn around. It could come forward, left, right, jump up a tree. Birds can fly any direction. You want a camera system that lives up to the ability to follow the movement, to get you the shot. You've traveled all the way to the destination that you want to be in. Now it's time for your gear to do the rest of the work. Obviously, you need an understanding of the equipment, but having gear that's able to do exactly what you've seen there, that is it. That is exactly what you want to have, and it makes all the difference. Look at a shot like this. Again, talking about the EVF and the autofocus points being able to go all the way to the corner. You can't track that eye on a DSLR. It's too far out of reach. You'd have to back button or focus and hold, let go, recompose, and then shoot. With this, I don't have to. All I do, back button down, seize the eye, autofocus point, like you saw with the video of the heron, in the extreme corner of the frame. It's able to track the eye and very effectively do that for me, and I can keep shooting and get beautiful shots like this. So what does that do? Well, first of all, I know the eye is going to be sharp and in focus, but also it gives me a greater diversity in terms of composition. I can now do extreme compositions without problem. As long as my autofocus point is on the animal will be tracked and identified, and I can put this eye even more I can put it right into the corner if I wanted, and it'll still be sharp, it'll still be tracked, and that is game changing. There's no other camera right now on the market with the ability to give you this kind of precise autofocus. Absolutely doesn't exist, except for the Sony tech. And if you're still listening, which I hope you are, that's how effective it is. Now, let's get into some birds. I'm not the world's best bird photographer. I wish I did have more time to spend time photographing birds. But if you look at a shot like this, it's not half bad for somebody that doesn't spend his days photographing birds. Now, this is a black-collared hawk in Pantanal coming down to feed. And look at the sharpness of these frames. This is with a 400 f2.8. I know I clipped the wing. This is full frame, uncropped. It's just the ability to do this easily. I can't explain how easy bird photography has become. Like I showed you with the roller and the heron, it tracks the action. When you push that back button down or your focus button down, those autofocus points are doing this on the frame, locking onto your bird and just holding onto that bird. Doesn't matter where your bird is in the frame. As long as you have it in the frame, the autofocus points will do the rest for you. It will track the autofocus points perfectly over the bird itself. Look at this. This is a kingfisher. And it's perfectly sharp. There was so much water droplets splashing everywhere. And yet, regardless of that, it tracked onto the bird. Beautiful dark background. And it's able to get it pin sharp beautifully. This is a roller flying down. Rollers are birds that we all love to photograph. It's the kind of bird that's popular. It looks beautiful. We love them. We all love to get that, that ultimate roller photograph. And now you're able to do it easier than ever before. This is the burn and takeoff. Like I showed you the roller through the Atomus, all you do is you point your camera now, back button down, let the autofocus point run over the bird. The moment the bird takes flight, I don't know how they do it, but the autofocus points do not let go of that bird. as long as you can somehow keep the bird in the frame, you can use a lens or zoom back a bit or move the vehicle back a bit, let the bird occupy 30% of the frame. You can always crop in. If this is full frame, so you can do that, take a risk. I like risks. But regardless of whether you're close or further, the autofocus points will track the bird, select the right aperture, and like, a bird like this, best aperture would be like f8, so you have beautiful depth of field, and then you get an easy bird photograph. You don't have to keep that focus point on the bird anymore in order to track it and to get the shot sharp. So for me, it's game changing. I said you're going to hear that again. And I'm not going to keep you too much longer. I just wanted to end. We've come to the end of the talk, and I just wanted to encourage you. Open your minds to mirrorless. If you don't have the kind of gear that I have here yet, especially this A9 II, unbelievable. If you don't have this yet, if you haven't invested or thought about mirrorless, or maybe you're watching this and you're on the fence, you've been thinking about it, but your buddies say, like they might laugh at you if they've got their big DSLRs and you arrive with a smaller little A9. And whatever your reason is for not switching over, think about it. I would encourage you to do. I was on the fence for a long time, but I had justified reasons. I had tried out a few different systems and it wasn't working for me. Finally, when I got this in hand, it all changed for me, 100%. I have I do not miss my DSLR. I don't think about it. I don't, it's gone. It's done. The future of wildlife photography is here in the form of what Sony's been able to do. Without doubt, that's where it's going, guys. You cannot go wrong. You can't fault it. As I've showed you in this talk, I've taken you into my viewfinder. I've showed you real-time examples, the photographs that I've captured. It's undeniable what the gear is able to do. And you couple an incredible autofocus system and image quality with something that's built, it's strong, it's durable, it can withstand heat, it can withstand cold, it can withstand water and dust and moisture. I mean, what more do you want? And then Sony's gone and given us as wildlife photographers lenses like a 200, 600, 600 mil, 400 mil, and who knows what else is still coming. I mean, this is pretty much it. The future of wildlife photography has arrived. It's here. It's on my desk. Could be on yours pretty soon. I know Outdoor Photo stocks an amazing selection of Sony gear, so you can get in touch with them. There's quite a few specials running at the moment where you can get cash back off your purchases. So absolutely, without a doubt, go and check it out. At least, have the camera in hand and play with it. It will change your life. Once you get into the field post-lockdown, it will change the way that you photograph. Without a doubt. It has mine, and I have no doubt that it will for you as well. So guys, thank you for the time. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of this. I hope you got some enjoyment out of it, and I hope I was able to at least change your mind to some extent on what the gear is capable of and what we can achieve through Sony and mirrorless technology. It's growing, it's getting better and better, and it's already beyond what DSLR is capable of doing. So the future of wildlife photography is bright, it's beautiful. Get on board. If you are already, fantastic. If you're listening and you were thinking about it, just go and do it. You won't regret it. Absolutely not. If you have questions, please DM me. Let me know what you would like to ask, or if there's anything specifically that you would have liked to ask from your side, and then please do so. So with that in mind, I'm just going to end with a few last questions here, guys. For those who watched till now, amazing. Please stick around if you wanted to, just to get through. There's only 3 or 4 questions that I'd like to get to, the guys have been asking. From Jonathan asked, with mirrorless, you can shoot silent. How is the continuous performance with silent shooting? Is it the same? It absolutely is. Silent shooting, I don't shoot with a silent mode on because it's so silent that you don't hear anything. So I don't know. I like to, at least, it's very soft, the sound of the shutter. But I shoot on an electronic viewfinder. It's fine out in nature and gives me no problem at all. And it's fast and it's quiet enough. But silent shooting for me, I like to at least hear a little bit. Otherwise, it's just blank and quiet. You don't know if you're shooting or not. So yeah, Jonathan, it doesn't change the performance of the camera. Stephen Grobler, any info on other mirrorless companies? animal focus tracking, firmware updates. I believe there are firmware updates coming. I don't know the other systems well enough. I haven't used them well enough. I've got friends using them. They don't have the animal eye autofocus jacked up as what Sony does. So I can't give you an exact answer on that. I know there's firmware updates coming. I know there's the R5 from Canon's coming out, and that's also got animal eye autofocus. So mirrorless is definitely the way to go. And the tech is there. So, something to look forward to, Stephen. And then Marita asked, how would this Sony model work in-house for studio portrait photography? So the A9 II is fantastic. I think outside of wildlife photography, the A9 is a fantastic events camera, especially outdoor events, weddings, concerts where you're shooting in low light and you want to have that fast shutter and low light performance. Take nothing away from the new A7R4. The Sony A7R4, unbelievable piece of equipment, 61 million pixels. Like each file, like a raw file, is like 140 megabytes. It is huge, incredible image quality. It's not about chasing pixels. It's about having that to your disposal, because if you wanted to crop in a little bit, you can do that. You can even crop in camera. You can go from full frame sensor and you can do a crop adjustment and get a bit closer to the action. And on the A7R4, that goes from 61 million pixels to around 30 million pixels if you crop in camera. Still great, still more than most cameras out there. So for, if you do mostly portraits, indoor photography, perhaps weddings, that kind of stuff, the A7R4 is golden, unbelievable camera for that. If you do mostly action, wildlife, sports, the A9 II is the camera for you to go to. So, guys, that's all the questions. Thanks for sending those through. If there's any last questions, send it now and I can see if I can answer that for you. I'll just refresh the page here. But if not, then I've really enjoyed my time with you guys. You guys have been awesome. Thank you for sending those questions through. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Just a few thank yous, which is fantastic. That's it from me. Have a lovely Saturday further. Thank you for giving me your attention. Thank you for the time. As I said, my name is Marlon the Toit, and hopefully I can hear from you soon. Get a hold of me on Instagram. Get a hold of the team at Outdoor Photo and let them answer any questions for you. And go get yourself a Sony. Thank you, guys. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.